Hi gents, this is Mr. Holding, and this video is just quickly looking at how to come up with a modified experiment and investigation to be able to complete your assignment. So you've got your report template here, and we've got our research question that we need to come up with. So consider the experiment you have chosen to modify and formulate a question for investigation. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is look at our original experiment. Okay, so the experiment that we did in class was an acid-base titration using 0.1 molar of sodium hydroxide in order to find the concentration of a weak solution of hydrochloric acid of unknown concentration. So we didn't know the concentration of the hydrochloric acid. We obviously did with the sodium hydroxide. We did titration. We worked out that the hydrochloric acid was a fair bit weaker. All right, that's our experiment. So you need to come up with an idea of how to modify that for a particular purpose. Okay, and that's the key. What's the purpose? Why are you doing it? What's the point of modifying it? All right, and I've come up with 4 possible ideas, and there's plenty more, but these are just some examples for you. So for example, the first one I came up with was standard error. All right, so you might look at this titration procedure and go, well, that's all good and well, but is there a standard amount of error that occurs when you titrate, or is it a perfect result every time, if you do it properly, of course? Chances are, the reality is there is probably a standard error of 3, 4, 5%. So no matter what you do, you're always going to have that. And how accurate you are, you're always going to have that percentage. So that could be your first thing, because it's important to understand that. So you'd say, well, it's, when you titrate an unknown solution, you should be able to say, well, it's this, give or take 5%, because you've calculated the standard error. The next one I thought about was the types of acid. So we've used hydrochloric acid in this one, and we could have justified its use by going, we're investigating how to neutralize your stomach acids or other things, okay? And therefore, it's important to be able to determine the acidity of an unknown hydrochloric acid solution. But if you look down here, there's a number of available acids to you that we can use in class. You could pick any of these. So acetic acid is like vinegar. Phosphoric acid is used in commercial. There's lactic acid, citric acid, boric acid, tartaric acid, and formic acid. All right, so you might choose to use one of those acids. But if you do, you have to sit there and go, okay, well, why am I researching this? What's the point of that? So you need to do some background information on the acid, find out what it's used for. And you might find out that it's used in medicine. And in medicine, it's important to be a certain pH, or they want it highly acidic, or they want it low acidic. It might be used in industry or in warfare or in something. And therefore, you have a reason for wanting to be able to investigate something. And therefore, it gives you that, question for investigation. So we're going to investigate this, how to calculate the pH of an acetic acid solution using 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide. And there's your research question, there's your justification, and then you can go ahead and do your titration of 1 mole sodium hydroxide to try and find the concentration of formic acid or phosphoric acid or whatever it is. But the important thing is that you've done research on that particular acid. You have a reason for researching it, and there's your research question. All right. From there, you need to come up with obviously the rationale, which I've pretty much covered anyway. Why have you chosen to research what you have? Okay, so why investigate standard error? What is the point of it? Okay, it's because you need to know, well, what's the standard error? Okay, when you do a titration, what can you expect to be the error either side? 5%, 10%. Okay. What of interest? What is of interest on your chosen acid? Is it its use in society, use in medicine, use in warfare? Whatever it is, or whatever you choose to do, you need to be able to explain why you're doing it, and that's where your research comes in. Okay. The other ones I would was types of base. You could flip it. Instead of trying to find an unknown acid, you could use an acid to find an unknown base. Okay, and instead of a clear liquid turning pink, you could have the pink liquid turning clear. And then again, the use of indicators. Okay, so does the indicator itself cause issues. You know, phenolphthalein is a weak acid. So by putting in a weak acid, does that alter the results a little bit? Okay, if you put 2 drops as opposed to 4 drops, as opposed to 6 drops, as opposed to 8 drops. Okay, but again, your rationale. Why? What's the importance of that? Why do you need to know that? All right. What's the value of you doing it? Okay, so hopefully this gives you a little bit of a help in terms of working out your question for investigation. You do need to make sure you got a clear idea of what you're doing and why you're doing it before you start. So hopefully this helps out. If you have any questions, please feel free to come and see me.